Good Wednesday morning, and welcome to my morning offering. My morning offering. Now, I know we've talked about this subject before in various contexts, but I just want to briefly discuss it this morning, and the subject is the Stele of Revealing. Isn't it pretty? Okay. It's the funeral stele of a historical character that's found in corroborating Egyptian texts of a character named Ankh of Khonsu or Khonsu, who Crowley would later in his life, or Crowley would eventually identify himself with. And he sort of, in his personal mythology or personal legend, which we're all supposed to make one up for ourselves, was his previous incarnation, and that Ankh of Khonsu was his magic, his presence. Ankh of Khonsu, as a magical catalyst, was responsible for ushering in the age of Osiris, okay, a few thousand years ago. And Ankh of Khonsu was a priest, a living character, a priest of Mentu. And when we're talking about Egyptian gods, it's much like talking about the various Buddhas and Buddhist bodhisattvas and things like that. They're all ultimately the same aspect, or they're aspects of the same God. But so he was the priest of Mentu and had a gig. He was also a confidant of several pharaonic administrations in the 25th dynasty. At the time, Crowley identified it as the 26th dynasty. But anyway, he was sort of like an advisor. I always joke and say he was the Henry Kissinger of the present pharaoh. But anyway, he was important enough to have a nice funeral, and what made his stele there so unusual and worthy to be exhibited at the Bulaq Museum and now the Cairo Museum. Well, it wasn't so much that it was expensive or or anything else. First of all, it was the funeral stele, or the tombstone, if you will, of a historical character that you can even look. I think his mummy even showed up in Chicago at one time at the Chicago Museum, or at least somebody identified as Ankh of Khonsu. It might have been a common name like John Tutmos or whatever. Anyway, the stele is important to Thelemites because the wheels started to turn in Crowley's head concerning the precession of the equinoxes vis-a-vis the magical aeons and things like that. The stele was pointed out to him at the Bulaq Museum by his wife Rose, who at the time was, they were staying in Cairo, was falling in and out of trances that interested Crowley very much. And she kept saying, the gods they got a message for you, Al, And uh, so he would question her in her trance state and everything else. And she talked about the god Horus, wanted to have a message for that somehow Crowley had snubbed Horus magically. And in a sense, it sort of struck a nerve with Crowley because he so identified the Egyptian Horus with his old uh, mentor and now arch enemy McGregor Mathers was the sort of martial force and fire. So I always say something like Crowley had snubbed Horus because when it came to Mathers, I hate you, I hate your gods. But anyway, and she pointed out the stele, and uh, sure enough, it was a particular kind of Horus. Okay, Rahur Kuit. Okay, 25th dynasty, and there's the Ankh Nakansu right there. He's the priest of the princess, and he's standing there before a table of offerings. But we've got the three archetypal characters here. We've got Nuit, the sky goddess Nuit, which was always associated with the infinitely expanded night sky, the space, infinite space. And there is the winged solar disk, or a singularity, right in the center. So cosmically speaking, it's the circumference of a divine circle and the point in it. And if the circumference is infinite, then the point is also, even though it's in the middle of it, is also infinitely everywhere. So it's kind of a wild supernal triad paradox of religious thought. And there is but she, as sort of like the Isis character, archetypal female, and the winged disc there has Hadith, is sort of like the archetypal male. Well, their child is Horus. Horus is the child of Isis and Osiris, and get deeper down into the mythology. He's sort of twins. He's got an active aspect, which is wild and crazy and vengeful and boisterous, and you don't take him anywhere. And then there's his other twin brother, Hur-Par-Krat, who the Greeks called Harpocrates, and he's totally passive, totally silent, just like Harpo Marx. And so he's all passive. So we've got magical dynamics going on here. We've got the twin infinitives of Nuit and Hadith, and then we've got the manifestation, the field of operation, that's the vibration that's created from the friction of the ultimate in going at it with the ultimate out. Okay, and so that's Rahur Kuit. Anyway, the stele number was exhibit number 666, and that sort of blew Crowley's mind, and the stele became very important. So I'm not going to go into the stele story in the Book of the Law, stuff like that. I do that a lot. But Crowley actually replaced the old Last Judgment card in the tarot, the one that's got the angel Israfel blowing the trumpet at the end of the world, and people popping up out of the graves. And there's usually they're shown three people popping up out of the graves, and one guy's giving the sign of Osiris risen, and the little baby is giving the sign of Apophis and Typhon, and the Isis in mourning is well, I don't know if she's given this sign exactly, but they're making the LVX signs of resurrection. And so Crowley replaced that. He said that the old tarot card represented the old Aeon's view of the end of the world. which it did. Okay, the angel blowing his trumpet and people raising from the dead and that whole thing. And Crowley saw that as the end of the age and the end of the formula of Osiris. He said that event happened shortly around the time they discovered this. And that Ra-Hoor-Khuit now has taken over the throne of Osiris. Now, Crowley just didn't pick that out of the thin air, because the magical ceremony of the Golden Dawn, where every 6 months, the officers move up in the chairs, as we say in Masonry. So in other words, the guy that was number 2 takes the number 1 spot, and the guy that was number 3 takes number 2's spot. Okay, and it goes like that. So everybody gets a chance at being the Hierophant in the East if you keep coming to lodge. And but Crowley was starting to think, if the age is changing, which was kind of the message of the Book of the Law, if the age is changing, then the age of Osiris is going to be taken over by the age of the sun, Horus. And just like in the Golden Dawn ceremony, the head honcho, the Hierophantic guy in the East, is Osiris. Okay? But the officer before him in seniority is the Hieros, the officer whose Egyptian god form is Horus, and the hegemon, the good cop, introducer, sort of the holy guardian angel of the candidate, is Isis. Okay. So the same thing was happening on a cosmic scale. Horus was taking the seat of the Father at the equinox of the gods. Okay, so Crowley just said, well, screw that old judgment card imagery. That was fine for a few thousand years, but now the change has been made. The officers have shifted, and this is now the Aon of Horus. And this is the symbol. So in the Thoth deck, it's a stylized version of the Stele of Revealing. Now, in the Book of the Law, Chapter 3, Ra-Hoor-Khuit's chapter, it says, "Get the Stele of Revealing itself, set it in thy secret temple, and that temple is already aright disposed, and it shall be your Qibla forever. It shall not fade, but miraculous color shall come back to it day after day. Close it in locked glass for the proof of the world." And then later on in verse 21, it says, "Set up my image in the east. Thou shalt buy thee an image, which I will show thee, a special, not unlike the one thou knowest. And it shall be suddenly easy for you to do this, for thee to do this." The other images. Okay, look at all my Ganeshas and my other images around here, and I got tons of gods and little statues and fun stuff. But you don't flush those down the toilet. No. They're all cool, okay? The other images group round to support me. Let all be worshipped. For they shall cluster to exalt me. I am the visible object of worship. The others are secret. For the beast and the bride are they, and for the winners of the ordeal X. What is this? Thou shalt know. Okay. If you've ever been privileged to go to a Gnostic Mass, a public celebration of Liber 15, which is usually how most people are introduced to the Thelemic community. It's a gorgeous ceremony. But right in the middle, exalted on this beautiful triple-tiered altar, surrounded by candles, 4 candles on each side, and then 6 candles on the tier below, and roses, and a beautiful woman on the altar. Right in back and usually above, you see the Stele of Revealing. It's like the visible object of worship. And if, as some magicians are, when they attend a Gnostic Mass, just as a celebrant, use it as a focal point, that all of the activities that's going on the altar with the priest and the priestess and everything else, it's all for the benefit of that central focus point. And if you've gone to the home of a practicing Thelemite, and if they show you their temple room, it's usually a unused bedroom of some kind that's kind of set up in a wonderful way. You'll also see on their personal altar one of these, a little one of those, a stele, or even just a photograph, a framed photograph of one. And they've got it on a particular wall sometimes. First of all, an appropriate wall to put it on, direction-wise, is the wall that's most convenient for you to put up a stele. Okay, don't get too carried away. Just like the best time to evoke a demon, if you're going to evoke a Goetic spirit or something like that, the best time to do it is whenever the hell you're able to do it. That's the best time. Then worry about planetary hours if you want to get into things. But I digress. Where is our East? Later on in Crowley's life, he interpreted certain passages of the Book of the Law to indicate that Boleskine house, I know I'm probably pronouncing it incorrectly, and so all my Scots friend, please forgive me first of all, and then feel free to correct. Boleskine house near Inverness, Scotland. I've been lucky enough to be there before it burned down, and now it's being resurrected beautifully. Contribute to its house building fund, please. It is located at, now if you've got a phone that has one of those compasses on it, like one of those things, okay? Most everybody's phone's got one of those. Okay, now, if you got one of those, point it to these coordinates. For me, all I have to do, don't point it at Redwheel Weiser, but don't don't point it toward Massachusetts. Well, you can. That's probably a straight line. Uh, Latitude 57 degrees, 16 minutes north. And for me, that is right at that lamp. It's almost that is east, and that is 57 degrees north right there. So if I was really, really a stickler, I'd arrange all the furniture in my office, if my office was the temple, and I'd put my stele right there. Why? Because it says, get the stele itself, set up my image in the east. Now, just like in Islam, you don't put up any image, but you certainly know the coordinates of Mecca. And that's the direction you turn to pray. And this is a similar situation to that. Now, because most Elamites don't like to do things just to do things and not know anything about what they're doing. Okay. Crowley, in the Equinox of the Gods, provided us with, first of all, his translation and poetic paraphrase of all of these hieroglyphs. The hieroglyphs on the obverse side, even those, and those on the back. And I'm going to quickly read to you the interpretation or translation of that. Got to remember, in Crowley's day in 1904, Egyptology, especially where the things translated into English were concerned, was a real funky thing. Egyptology was actually in its infancy in 1904. But it would be nice, okay, and there it was exhibit number 666. Okay. It would be nice to know what the hell it was saying. So I'm going to read it to you right now. It's really short. Remember? This is Onkof Nakansu right there, that guy right there, or that guy right there. And he's dead. But before he died, he made his own stele. Got himself a piece of wood, and he the equivalent of, he stuccoed it so it looked like stone. And then he painted it, probably while the stucco was still wet, so it would last for ever. And he fashioned it himself. This is, I think this is the photograph of it, actually. It's the equivalent of carving your own tombstone before you die. That is of historical significance right there. It'd be like, oh, look at this tombstone. It's Benjamin Franklin's tombstone. And he chiseled it himself. See, he misspelled King George's name. Okay. Here is the inscription of the obverse side, right here. Now Crowley had it he had to have, because the instructions of the Book of the Law says get the stele itself, okay, and it was so important, it zapped Rose into the major trance that led to the reception of the Book of the Law. Crowley was interested in this thing, and of course he couldn't buy it from the museum, but the museum provided him or found an artist to make a reproduction of it. And the museum also put him in contact with a Frenchman who at the time was probably the best hieroglyphic translator that they knew of at the time, and had the Frenchman translate it, and then Crowley translated it from the French and paraphrased it poetically like Crowley was wont to do. But anyway, this is what it says, or what Crowley said. Now you'll recognize verses, portions of what would, in just a few months' time, be part of the Book of the Law. Now the quotes in the Book of the Law that are from the paraphrased section of the stele were not part of the audibly heard dictation of the text of the Book of the Law. Later, when as I was in April 8th, 9th, and 10th, as Iwas was dictating it to Crowley, he didn't quote from the stele, but he indicated somehow where to insert certain sections of it. And while they were still in the white heat of the reception of the Book of the Law, Crowley and Rose conferred together that said, okay, in this spot we should add this from your stele translation, and in this spot we should add this verse or these two verses. And Crowley was still obeying Rose and her ideas because she was literally the seer. Okay, so when there was a question about what to do with the text of the Book of the Law, Rose was the final authority. And so these paraphrase sections that appear in the Book of the Law, and they appear in like verse-like format, like that. Okay, those words were written by Crowley, not in a trance state, but they were written by Crowley in the days and weeks before the magic ceremonies that led to the dictations. So we've got to make that clear. So in other words, Crowley did not hear these words in his ear during the dictation hours of April 8th, 9th, and 10th. So here's the inscription on the obverse, or the front. Above the gemmed azure is the naked splendor of Nuit. She bends in ecstasy to kiss the secret ardors of Hadit. The winged globe, the starry blue, are mine, O Ankh of Nakansu. I am the lord of Thebes, and I, the inspired fourth speaker of Mentu. For me unveils the veiled sky the self-slain Ankh of Nakansu, whose words are truth. I invoke, greet thy presence, O Ra-Hur Kuit. Unity uttermost showed, I adore the might of thy breath, supreme and terrible God, who makest the gods in death to tremble before thee. I adore thee. Appear on the throne of Ra, open the ways of the Ku, lighten the ways of the Ka. The ways of the Cobs runs through to stir me or still me. Aum, let it kill me. The light is mine, its rays consume me. I have made a secret door into the house of Ra and tomb, of Kefra and Ahithur. I am thy Theban, O Mentu, the prophet Ankh of Nakansu. By best Namaut my breast I beat, by wise Tanech I weave my spell. Show thy star splendor, O Nuit. Bid me within thine house to dwell. O winged snake of light Hadit, abide with me, Ra-Hur Kuit. Now I know many of you out there probably bristled when I said, Aum, let it kill me, because for decades, volumes of the Book of the Law said, Aum, let it fill me. But what I'm talking about in this particular thing, the translation of the Stele, this very document right here with the kill me in it, appeared in Crowley's first authoritative comment on the reception of the Book of the Law, Equinox of the Gods, and it correctly states Crowley's translation in original poem with the words, Aum, let it kill me. Now, the paraphrase, all of this, you can find all of this stuff in, gotta plug the book, Magic of Aleister Crowley. Now, the back. It's not long. I'm going to read you the translation of the back. But the back's very interesting. You know, when they dress a mummy, first of all, they pull the brains out of the nose, and they don't want any liquidy, yucky stuff to spoil their taxidermy of the deceased body. Okay, but they don't want to throw the stuff away either. Okay, so they've got these beautiful little canopic jars, and the jars have lids, or they got bottle caps with the faces of Anubis and other Egyptian gods and spirits and things like really cool stuff. So they don't throw your liver away. They put them in these canopic jars where they can just sit up on a shelf in the tomb and stink for 50 years and then just get kind of turned into like raisins, you know. But to keep them out of the body, okay, keep them out of the body itself so the body can be preserved very nicely. Now, in the place, and they wrap everything else, they didn't want to leave the heart area empty. Okay, so they made a stone scarab, you know, a scarab beetle, big, about the size of a human heart. And it had a flat foot, okay, just not a beetle foot, but it had a flat base, Okay, so you could set it like a paperweight. You just set it down. You got a nice big heart-shaped or heart-sized scarab stone. But on the bottom of the stone, so if you can imagine the big scarab sitting on top of this, if you turn the scarab over, there was a spell from the Egyptian Book of the Dead. And everybody's mummy had the same thing for I don't know how many years. It was a thing to do. But this, in a sense, was the heart chakra of the deceased for eternity, right in the heart area of the former physical body. And here's what it says for personalized for Ankh of Nakhonsu, edited by Ankh of Nakhonsu himself in the 25th dynasty. This is the paraphrase of the hieroglyphs of the 11 lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, upon the reverse of the stele. Saith of Mentu, the truth-telling brother, who was the master of Thebes from his birth. O heart of me, heart of my mother, O heart which I had upon earth, stand not thou up against me a witness. Oppose me not, judge, in my quest. Accuse me not now of unfitness. Before the great God, the dread Lord of the West, for I fashioned the one to the other with a spell for their mystical girth, the earth and the wonderful West, when I flourished, O earth, on my breast. The dead man, Ankh of Nakhonsu, saith, with his voice of truth and calm, O thou that hast the single arm, O thou that glitterest in the moon, I weave thee in the spinning charm, I lure thee with the billowy tune. The dead man, Ankh of Nakhonsu, hath parted from the darkling crowds, hath joined the dwellers of the light, opening Duant the starry abodes, their keys receiving. The dead man, Ankh of Nakhonsu, hath made his passage into night, his pleasure on the earth to do, among the living. And that's our Wednesday visit about the Stele revealing. If you think you would like to have an image of the Stele revealing, the best thing to do is find one of the many examples of just a line drawing of it and figure out a way to transfer that to a piece of wood or something and do it yourself. On the evening of my Minerval initiation, November 15th, 1975, Grady McMurtry gave me 4 legal size Xerox copies, or whatever they called copy machines in those days, of full-size sections of the stele like that. And with those sections, which I took home and taped together, and then I made a stele on particle board and stuff. And it was very rewarding. But you can also get them online. And the state of the art of stele making for Thelemites has never been more available to you. You can just get on your phone and order one. Then, when you get it, if for no other purpose than to just say, well, I'm a Thelemite and I got a stele up at latitude, pointing toward latitude 57 degrees, 16 minutes north. And just make it the focal point of your magic. So instead of when you do your pentagram ritual, instead of going due east, start your pentagram ritual, make your east the stele. Or not, do what thou wilt. Until tomorrow, continue to be good to yourself, be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will.